All right, so we shall officially open the September Board of Health meeting at 5:02. And Jack Jamasek, Pramila Nair, and myself, Risha Hess, are all here. Betsy has joined the call, but we don't think she's actually in front of her computer at the moment, so we'll wait for her. And either Kiko or Mahini, are you able to text her or reach out and just see if she's having a computer problem?
Yeah, I can do that.
Great. Just pulling up agendas. So as usual, the first thing is reviewing the minutes from last meeting. Sorry, I say I have a light problem here, but I didn't notice anything that needed comment or change in the minutes. Did anybody else?
Just there was a misspelling of a couple of people's names from public comment.
Oh,
Adrienne Teresi is ADRIENNETERRIZZI. And it's Louise Grosslein, GROSSLEIN.
great. Nice catch.
I didn't get to all the minutes, but.
But you got that. That was important. And Maheen, did you get those corrections? Okay, great.
Okay, I think that's probably it. And so, can someone motion to accept the minutes with those changes?
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor, you can just raise your hand. So we've got 3. Myself, Jack, and Pramila. And we'll go on to old business. Let's can I switch that order and do the date conversation first? So we had moved, it is an irregular month for us next month. Usually we meet on the first Thursday. Due to the Jewish holidays, we are meeting, we moved the meeting to the second Thursday, but that then gave a conflict for Jack. I mean, my sense is some of us are always going to, we won't have 100% participation in any meeting. So if it's a one-time thing, I think we might just keep the meeting date, if that's okay, Jack.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I may end up going to the Board of Health. It's the one conflict that we've accommodated my schedule with the regular meetings. This is a annual meeting in person. I'm kind of inclined to go to that just for that purpose, but
it sounds like we should.
Yeah.
And we acknowledge that some of us at some point will miss a meeting at everything.
If I may ask, when are we expected to have the new member on board with us?
Kiko, do you know anything specific about that? I mean, we did the interviews, or we did a round of interviews, I should say.
Yeah, so I mean, Risha, do you want to give a little update on just the interviews? There were 3 candidates. Yeah, I'll just say there were 3 candidates. One of them was it was not clear that all of them were the best suitable candidates. There was one that sort of stood out as perhaps being the best prepared or the best suitable. But it's ultimately Paul's decision. And so we didn't get to sort of plan for next steps. The interviews ended a little bit quickly. So I haven't had a chance to connect with Paul, but Angela, his executive assistant, said that he hasn't made a decision yet. So it's always a little bit complicated in terms of how this all works. It is ultimately the town manager's decision about who will sit on the Board of Health. But we had a really open discussion about what made sense in terms of what we saw with the candidates, with Risha and I being part of the interview. So I'm hoping that we'll have, and he did say to me actually that he felt he would have an answer in time for our next meeting. And that that person could be appointed in time for the next meeting. Assuming that the person who seems to be the best wants the vacancy, is interested ultimately in the vacancy. So we'll see. It's a little bit uncertain at this point.
Want to apologize for being late. I was coming from Northampton, got caught in more traffic than usual, and my phone has no access on my route. So apologies.
Understood. We're glad you're here.
Thanks, Betsy.
So I think that, can everyone else make the 9th next month? We had already scheduled it. It should be right in your calendars, but it's the second Tuesday of the month because of the Jewish holidays. We know Jack can't. If everyone else can make it, I think we should keep it. Okay.
Yep.
Looks like everyone else can make it. And then we have the board, the tobacco public hearing on tobacco-free generation. I think Kiko and I both couldn't quite remember where we landed on, or maybe had different memories of where we landed on setting that date. And the minute says that we landed on after the 9th, but not with the 9th, I think is how it was phrased in the minutes. I had remembered that we actually had said that those might be at the same day. But given that Jack can't make the 9th anyway, I think we should schedule the tobacco public hearing on a different day that we can all be there. And so then it's a scheduling question. And are Thursdays generally better? Is that a better day of the week than others? From my standpoint, it's not better than any other day. I'm happy to do a different day, but
At this moment, I don't have a preference.
I don't either. Thursday looks fine.
Yeah, Thursday's good.
okay. So I sense a preference for Thursdays. So would the 16th work?
Mm,
Is that, let me look at October
It's
6th.
the week after the Monday holiday, or I mean, it's the Thursday after the Monday holiday.
16th of October.
Yes.
Yep, that's good for me.
I'd potentially have a conflict because of a child's birthday.
The 23rd,
The 23rd is fine.
Jack?
23rd. I have the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission.
What
Meeting
about
at 5.
Wednesday, the 22nd?
Excuse me, the 22nd? Yep, 22nd's good.
Betsy,
That works for me.
Remela,
Yep.
Kiko?
That works for me. I'm noticing that the Civic Academy, which is this project that's being launched by the town manager's office, is meeting that day in the Bangs Center from 6 to 8 p.m. So they're probably in the room that we would want to use. And it might be a little bit busy there. I don't know that that's a deal breaker. I'm just bringing it up.
Is that room we met in town hall one time a possibility?
Oh, the town room? Yeah, probably. I think what we can do, I can try to check the schedule right now from my phone. Sometimes I can do that. The town room I can't check, but I can check the bank center to see what other rooms might be available. But if the 22nd seems good, we can hold that, and then I should be able to find a room somewhere.
Okay, why don't we try that? Maheen, how does that one work for you?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Do you
Okay.
want to have an alternate date just in case the 22nd doesn't work?
So that's a Wednesday.
That's a
Yes.
Wednesday.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we could go to the 30th, which is the next Thursday. It means that we have that, and then the following week is the next board meeting, but that doesn't seem like an absolute no.
I will be out of the country at that next board meeting. I mentioned that before.
At the next board meeting, would you be around for the 30th?
And the 22nd.
Okay. Anyone else have a conflict on the 30th? All right, so that's one of those 2 days, Kiko.
The 22nd or the 30th?
Yeah,
Okay. For the tobacco public hearing.
yeah. And we just want to make sure we've got as much publicity as possible with the younger folks.
Is there a way to actually request some student government groups or to,
I think we can
Just
invite them
yeah,
specifically, but
I think that would really be nice to actually, get some, make sure we get the input.
Yeah, so Haley Barrows, who's been our intern over the summer, is a current UMass Amherst student. And she's aware of this hearing and is interested in promoting it. And actually, one of the Board of Health candidates is also a student who probably isn't interested in the Board of Health after our interview, but very interested in this issue and willing to do sort of promotional work around it. So I think we have good connections to the school to get attendance from young people.
UMass.
Yeah.
At the high school,
You
because
might have-
The high school, oh, I'm sorry.
because the high school students are the ones who will be directly affected.
Both will, university students will as well. But yes, I mean, we have connections with the school nurse and then the other colleges too, we want to connect with, and we do have
Okay.
contacts, so we can reach out to those.
Great.
Okay. So in terms of the brief check-in, I don't know if any of the folks I see several attendees have joined us, and I'm glad to see you all. We didn't intend for any of this to have full discussions on either Kratom or the waste hauler. We just wanted to keep ourselves informed of what's happened and where things are. Betsy or Premila, I haven't been looped into the conversation. I don't know if you have an update or if there was anything you wanted to say at this meeting on Kratom.
I think we listened to the Northampton Board of Health meetings, and I think both you and Kiko also listened to those.
I have not yet.
You have not. We felt that it was a very informed, thoughtful discussion. And I think both, speaking for both Premila and I think we feel inclined to follow their lead and begin with sort of more immediate regulation of the 17-hydroxy synthetic product. And because that's something that seems, the evidence is quite clear that that's something that merits attention and regulation. And it's a larger project, and we'll take that on next to do a deeper dive on the natural leaf kratom and what regulation, if any, we want to do there.
I think that the Northampton board regulation also just states it prohibits all synthetic mind-altering drugs. So that includes Delta-8 and Delta-10. And so, that's something that we should consider making it broader. There was, compelling information about that as well.
I'm pausing on process. I suspect we don't want to take a vote today, just because we didn't have that on the agenda And so I think it's kind for all of us to, if you know you're taking a vote, to that you might, myself, let's speak for myself. I would have done more research if I thought we were taking a vote today.
Yeah.
The, so I'm,
And to add to that, I think we could put a summary document about what the evidence is and what the approach is, but we just haven't done that yet. And that'll be before the next meeting. We'll have a draft out on that to send
Great.
in advance. But I think just as a quick response to talk about where we were, I think we just felt like they had done a really nice job and we needed to review but not reinvent the wheel.
okay.
Belchertown also has passed that regulation, so there's another place that would have worthwhile information. The last Northampton Board of Health meeting in August was very informative. The one prior where the issue first came up was also very informative. So if you have the time, I think that would be great.
Okay, great. And so maybe we can put on the agenda for next week, that you'll share what you think is really important for all of us to know, summarized. I mean, nothing extensive and,
Next meeting, you mean, not next week?
sorry, next meeting. Thank you.
Next meeting, and we'll get it to the board a week before the meeting.
Perfect. And then we'll plan to take a vote, on the preliminary step. Can I just ask one question? Is all synthetic mind-altering drugs a term that actually holds up?
Well, that's an interesting question. I did wonder about that. I just know I wrote it down because that's specifically what Meredith O'Leary
Okay,
phrased it as. I can't say off the top of my head without looking into it. I did wonder about that, but
Okay.
maybe Kiko, you can follow up with Meredith.
I'm happy to follow up with Meredith. Knowing her as I do, I can bet that the reason she's using that terminology is that there are so many things that come up every so often. And so you can make a regulation on one thing and then next month there's some new thing on the market. So if you use broad language like synthetic mind-altering drugs, it covers you for any new products that might be popping up in convenience stores.
I would really appreciate you reaching out, Kiko, and see what she's done to get to that wording, and whether we know that it, the balance is always, we don't want it to cover things that we didn't mean it to, right? Like, does something weird fall into that category that we wouldn't be intending to regulate, and that it's broad enough that every time they come out with an 8, 9, 10, 11, we don't have to rewrite the regulations.
Yeah, that's what's tricky about this, is finding the sweet spot with the language where you cover yourself from not having to do a new set of regulations every quarter, and you don't, disallow people buying something that could potentially be helpful. So it's tough, but yes, I'm happy to reach out to her. I also think that they do a good job in Northampton of writing regulations and would be happy to share the regulations that they've adopted, so we don't have to start from scratch. We can look at what they have and decide if it fits for Amherst.
Great.
Yeah, there was some discussion at the meeting about what it covers and doesn't cover and getting that
Okay.
sweet spot
Yeah.
right.
I'll make sure I listen.
And we'll try and summarize that, but it was a nuanced, and
Yeah.
they struggled over this. It wasn't obvious that there was one easy answer that would cover everything you wanted and nothing you didn't.
It's well put, Betsy.
It's also helpful that the Northampton Board of Health has a physician who's an addiction specialist on the board.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I thought it was very helpful.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've been learning being on the board is this, combination of people who have some lived experience, but also seem to be on the payroll or have some role as influencers, and it's hard to know whether it's a voluntary role because their lived experience is so dramatic to them, or whether it's a paid experience. Because, we do get a lot of people who have no direct connection to the community and seem to have a lot of time to follow these these pop-up hearings all over the region. So I found myself very curious to know who is a paid, um, um,
Yeah,
somebody
as
who's
it
being
were.
paid to share their lived experience. And
Yeah.
this has confused me a lot in listening to the testimonies.
Yeah, I want to say that the meeting prior to the last meeting, there were many people testifying for Kratom, many of them the same people that testified at our last, or spoke at our last meeting. And the last meeting that they had, where they were specifically discussing and passing the regulations, there were a lot more people in support of the regulation than there were, people speaking up on behalf of the pure product.
Yeah. So it seems like that might be the paid versus the local, but it, it, I assume it's not proper to ask that, or
No,
I
to
mean,
ask.
I think I am inferring here, but I think what I've heard from our board a lot is that we will weigh the feedback of folks locally pretty heavily, because that is who is going to be impacted directly by any of these regulations. And so, I think that probably still stands, whether or not they're a lobbyist officially or just a person who's passionate. Um,
Yeah.
and they might be both, right? I mean,
Yep.
being paid doesn't mean you didn't actually care about it either. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you both. I appreciate it. And I think the plan is clear.
So can I just clarify then, the plan is Betsy Premila writing up a summary of the evidence, getting that to board members a week before the next meeting, and then at that board meeting on October 9th, the board will vote as to whether or not to develop regulations about kratom and possibly all synthetic mind-altering drugs, if I get more information from Meredith about that.
That's how I understood it. Yeah.
Good. Okay, just want to make sure it's crystal clear. Thank you.
And then the second update is around the waste hauler. Kiko, do you have a good starting place here?
I do. I talked to Paul after you all sent the letter, and thank you, Jack, for reaching out to PVPC in the way that you did.
Mhm.
What he told me when I met with him, which was last Friday, so a week ago tomorrow, was that he is talking to 2 consultants. So I'm gonna keep reminding him about this when I meet with him. But he essentially said it sort of dropped off the priority list, and that's not acceptable. And I've picked it up again, and I'm talking to these consultants. So that's the message I got from Paul.
And I spoke with Andy Steinberg, the town councilor who is supporting these regulations. He asked to speak with me. It looks like August 20th. And that was really helpful. I think that one of the things that I found sort of as a new piece of information in the process is that it wasn't super helpful for us to go out and find any old consultant who could potentially do this. And that they were trying to get folks who were, the word is not quite pre-approved, but who had authorization that they wouldn't have to go out to open bidding on the process, which would extend it. But there's a point at which that might have to happen, but that was what they were trying to avoid. And we did send a letter to Paul. It's in the packet that for this meeting, if anyone wanted to see it. And thank you for writing that.
Did we ask whether our neighboring communities have a similar project? And it seems again that sharing a resource, the that it would be very helpful if Northampton or Belchertown or Granby or some of the other communities had gone through this process and found a consultant who was helpful, would be worth knowing, or if they had located an individual who could take this role.
I think the folks who have done it are not neighbors per se. But there are folks in Massachusetts, and those contacts have been either, well, they've definitely been shared, and I think they've been either knocked off the list because they don't have availability in the near future, or they are one of the two that is being considered.
Yeah,
Mhm.
are any of the neighboring communities, boards of health, interested in pursuing this kind of, do we know if any of them also have this on their agenda?
Well, Northampton's a little different because they have pedal people who do pick up compost. So, they're not entirely in the same predicament that we are. Beyond that, I don't know what discussions they have had or not had. Maybe Kiko, if you could follow up with Meredith, that if you think it's worth it.
Sure. Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, I would add that the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, being a regional sort of entity, has expertise kind of drawn in from more than just, one town. And they are in that category that Risha mentioned, are in a no bid situation because they're a state approved kind of entity. So that makes them favorable. So I'm wondering who the other consultant is that Paul's thinking of, but
The MAHB might also have some helpful links,
What is that acronym?
the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards, Boards of Health.
All right. And I have not actually received any official communication back from our letter from Paul.
Mm,
That's my next question.
good. All right, that's a good point. I can mention that to him.
Okay, anything else on the waste hauler? Okay. So we have time for public comment. We do have 2 times within the schedule. It's been a change in our agenda standard, so just informing that there is another time later on, and you're welcome to comment in both, should you want. And I see we have one hand up.
Okay, I can call on people, just raise your hand, and then Kiko, do you want to keep time? I think it's 2 minutes, and just introduce yourself and what town you're from. So I'll call on Misty Brown first. If you could unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Mhm.
My name is Misty Brown, and I'm from Colorado. I am one of the loudest and proudest, Kratom advocates. I wanted to answer your questions about, whether or not we're paid to advocate. I am not. I am literally a 46-year-old single mom who's on disability, and Kratom saved my life in 2019 from active addiction. So I am doing this with nothing but pure heart passion. And anybody that I bring along with me, their stories are, not exactly like mine, but, kind of similar. Some, just deal with chronic pain. Others have, beat the addiction disease, all that stuff. So anybody that I recruit along with me, we do this with passion. Yes, we have the American Kratom Association, representing us as consumers. And, the lobbyist, Mac Haddo from there is paid, but they're paid via, donations and all that stuff. But whatever you see us do, we do it out of pure passion. I just want to let y'all know that. So thank you.
Thank you, Misty.
You're very welcome.
Okay, I'm gonna call on Maria now. Maria, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, give me a moment. I am pulling over to the side of the road so that I am doing this safely. Okay, so my name is Maria Kopicki. I live in South Amherst, and I'm speaking to you today about the playground surfacing. So, when you guys addressed this, when the board addressed this in February of last year, you did an extensive job of researching. You did a great job of that, as did the Conservation Commission. And I think that your findings were excellent and you should hold to them. You should know that the only reason that this is being even brought up again is because of some potential difficulties getting the cork-based poured-in-place materials, although that is primarily a human issue of a difficult installation in a different city. But I still think that that is the best solution to the playground surfacing. I want to point out a couple things, just having seen some of the materials that have been added more recently to your packet. When you're talking about crumb rubber, and that is what I think really should be avoided, the crumb rubber based products, you have to keep in mind a couple of things. There's no debate about whether crumb rubber has carcinogens, heavy metals, endocrine disruptors, and that other poured in place unitary surfaces, the materials in there, like cork and engineered wood fiber, do not contain those problematic chemicals. The other thing is the user population for this project. This is an elementary school. It's going to be used by littles and their younger siblings when they come to use this playground. These little guys are going to put things in their mouth, so there's ingestion risks. They crawl on the ground. They're going to be on the ground. They're probably going to be eating on the ground. And if you look at the information you've got about the consumer protection safety recommendations, this is not a good product for littles. Some of the studies I've seen included in some information was based on synthetic fields and the use of crumb rubber within an artificial turf field. But I think you have to remember the user population here, and that's different. Here's the thing. When
Maria, just want to let you know you have 25 seconds left.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. I think it will take a little more effort on the part of some people in the school building committee to get this right the first time and to get Corkine and I've spoken with people at Corkine, and they are happy to make this work for us. This tendency to want to go to rubber pip is when all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. People tend to default to things that they have seen before, but we really need to change that. We need a paradigm shift, and we need to switch to a material that is safer. So I hope you uphold your findings from before. I do not know if I'm going to be able to stay on and comment later, but I will certainly watch the tape and write to you again based on what you guys talk about tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria.
Okay, I don't see anyone else. We'll do like a final call. If anyone would like to make public comment, please raise your hand.
Okay, I think we will close this session of public comment. Like I said, there will be another one before we adjourn if others would like to stay on. So the next piece of business is new business, and it is the playground surface, which was just commented on. Kiko, would you be able to give us background on why this is coming back around? As the background, we did put a statement out. Look at the date of it.
February 24th.
February 24th, February 8th, 2024. Premila and I were on the board at that time, but Betsy and Jack were not. So you may feel like there's a lot of information coming at you on this one, and we can rediscuss, but Kiko, can you just help me remember why it is back on our radar?
Yeah, so when this came up in the past, there was this very strong support for a non-crumb rubber port in place surface. And so the entity or the agency that the town is contracted with to build the school was not familiar with Corkine, didn't want to have responsibility for that. So they ended up approving the contract for the construction of the school without mandating that the surface be done in this way by that contractor. So basically they're doing everything but the playground surface. So the playground surface, that was the only way to move the work forward, was to take that chunk out. And then, so it is the Conservation Commission is ultimately the one that needs to sign off on the final permits to build this playground. Their primary concern is about the environment and environmental pollution contamination. So that's the lens from which they make permitting recommendations or permit approvals. So we were going along then with this assumption that it was going to be Corkine, it was going to be a piece of work produced by, or carried out by some other entity, not the group doing the whole school construction. That was acceptable to people. But in the meantime, as Maria alluded to, there have been reports of the Corkine surface, the only other Corkine surface that we know of in the state of Massachusetts, which is in Easton, not holding up well. This is the reports that people are hearing, that it didn't hold up well. It's starting to fall apart after a year, not much more than a year of being installed. It's a fairly new product, so there are not lots and lots of reports of how it's worked well. Apparently it has worked very well in Europe, but I think we don't have that actual data, is what I'm being told by town folks. I'm just telling you what I've heard from people within the town. And the reason that it's come back up to the school committee is that there have been these logistical hurdles we've heard things that are concerning, that there aren't a lot of people who are experienced with it. What happened in Easton, there was a question of, was it the product that's bad or was it the installation that was bad? And the installers were saying it was the product. The product people were saying the installation was bad. So when you have a new product with not a ton of huge track record, it can raise some concerns. And so that's what's happened. The school committee is looking at it again. They talked about this. I think once they got the information about what had happened in Easton at their last meeting, no decision was made. It is coming before the school committee again, I believe, at their meeting in September, which is coming up fairly soon. And it will be the school committee that will need to make a recommendation based on what they're hearing, what they know about the availability of this product. And I imagine that folks on that committee are doing some research, and then they'll decide what they want to do. And then it does have to go through Concom for ultimate permitting and approval. So the Board of Health doesn't have an approval role within this process of getting the school built in the way that the Concom does, but the Board of Health definitely does have feelings about this. That's why the recommendations or statement position paper was put together by you all, or some of you, back in February of 2024. And as Maria said, I think it's just incumbent upon us to remember what it was that we said before and how that what the Board of Health wants how people feel about this as it unfolds. So it's not, we're a little bit, I'm just letting people know where it stands. No decisions have been made, but it may be something that is going to be a tricky decision that the board might feel some need to weigh in on at some point down the line.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Did anyone have any questions or comments? Jack, I know you shared some research. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I know I would not be signing the motion that passed a year ago. I'm in disagreement with the nature that there's, contamination within a building material. What is more important is there exposure or not? And I don't know. I just know throughout the state, I talked to a playground engineer. The most, recent playground that people talk about in Eastern Massachusetts is in Waltham. It's a 200 triple O Trapello Road, and it's made with port in place, rubber, and that is the standard. And I just find it interesting that Amherst is a town that is questioning this surface, which is accepted throughout. And I do understand the Turry paper is talking about, what are things made out of, and yes, that it can contain different things in it. And quite frankly, our roads and our houses, and there's all sorts of strange things and everything that in our environment. But do we is there a pathway in terms of consumption or breathing or injection that these materials actually get in our body? And in this case, there isn't. And from an environmental standpoint, it's no different than a parking lot that might have a sealant put on it, So I don't know. For me, I do risk assessment type work for my work, more from soil groundwater perspective, and so I I'm in a very much different place than what has been argued, and I really don't know the history how it came about, but to me, that the port in place is seals whatever it can be, whatever underneath there. It can be the crumble. It's fine. I like the idea that it's recycled and you're not generating more rubber. And it will be sealed and contained and inaccessible to others. And the reason that port in place surface is so desirable is because it's safe and it allows for accessibility for kids, those that you know may be disabled, or limits falling hazards, and it's just an ideal surface. So I rambled a little bit. I mean, I did pass on those two. I can read in the two paragraphs I thought were good from the two articles, one from EPA and then one from the consumer protection.
Jack, that sounds like a good
Okay.
idea. Why don't you read
Yeah.
it in?
Okay. So the EPA paper entitled Federal Research on Recycled Tire Crumb Used on Playing Fields and Playgrounds. I believe it's 2018, but let me just no, it's last updated 2025. Okay, so this is very current. And I just want to skip down to the summary there. And it says, in general, the findings from the entire playing field portion of this study, both the tire crumb characterization part 1 and tire crumb exposure characterization part 2 combined, support the conclusion that although chemicals are present as expected in the tire crumb rubber and exposures can occur, they are likely limited. For example, generally only small amounts of most organic chemicals are released from tire crumb into the air through emissions. For many chemicals measured during active play or outdoor fields, concentrations in air were not different than background samples, while others were somewhat higher. For metals, only small fractions, less than 1 to 3%, are released from tire crumb rubber into simulated biological fluids compared to a default assumption of 100% bio accessibility. Then in a biomonitoring pilot study, concentrations for metals measured in blood were similar to those in the general population. No differences. In the final bullet is no differences in pH, which are polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon. Metabolites in urine were observed between the study participants using synthetic turf fields compared to those using grass fields. So that was the EPA study speaking to playground surfaces. And then the other one is the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission. Let's see if this has a date. It's just on their website. And the title is Status of the Consumer Product Safety Commission's Review of Playgrounds with Crumb Rubber, and then going down to the end. While no specific chemical hazards from recycled tires and playground surfacing are known by the CPSC at this time, the following precautions to limit exposure are recommended. Avoid mouth contact with playground surfacing materials, including mouthing, chewing, or swallowing playground rubber. This may pose a choking hazard regardless of chemical exposure. Avoid eating food or drinking beverages while directly on playground surfaces, and wash hands before handling food. Limit the time at a playground on extremely hot days. Clean hands and other areas of exposed skin after visiting the playground, and consider changing clothes if evidence of tire materials, example, black marks or dust, is visible on fabrics. And clean any toys that were used on playground after the visit. So that's, again, that's more like sanitary type stuff, but they identified no specific chemical hazards from recycled tires in the application of playground surfacing. Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, you want to use natural materials, but the advantages for me of accessibility for those in wheelchairs and things like that, and the low threat of injury from falls, whatever, it's just a superior product.
Superior to what?
I think the wood chips or concrete.
Well, right, except we're talking about, sorry, Jack, did you finish what you were going to say?
No, you asked me a question, that's all. Yeah, I'm done.
So, but we're not talking about wood chips or concrete. We're talking about the cork surface that they were going to use. And, well, a couple of things. One is I have a problem with, and maybe you're not saying this, but just because something has always been used doesn't mean that it's the best product, because these things, new advances come up, new products come up. And Tim Runder, who was on the Board of Health at that time, has expertise in sustainability science, environmental sciences, ecological economics, landscape ecology, and he's published some articles about this too. I would say that, and I'm not quite sure this is what's happening. I'm just relying on what we've been told about why this is coming up again, to pivot because of the experience of one school, and it's not clear that it has to do with the product. It could have to do with the installers. And it seems to me, if that were well, first of all, it seems to me that you'd want to look into, take a broader scan of where it's been used, how it's been used. I understand it's not been used elsewhere in Massachusetts, but it's been used in Sweden, for instance, for many years and successfully. And those caveats, that the CPSC, those are important caveats for, and I don't think that it's fair to say that that's just about hygiene. It seems to me it is about the potential for ingestion. So, I have not heard anything convincing to persuade me that, we need to pivot to poured in place rubber. Engineered wood fiber is another possibility. So, that there's that. And I'm not necessarily invested in one versus the other, but I do think it is something that needs to be looked into more carefully, especially since the Conservation Commission has weighed in, and they do have the final say, and we put forth the statement that we did.
I can add a few sort of more logistical elements to this. The one is just to be clear that the letter that we sent, that I know you all have in front of you, but it doesn't actually make a recommendation for anything. It makes a recommendation against things that include these chemicals.
Mhm.
To me, it seems like we have three options in front of us. One would be to rescind our previous letter. The other would be to do nothing. And the third would be to re-emphasize or send the letter. And I just wanted to put those as sort of, I think that's what we're the options in front of us if someone sees a different one, but it's sort of rescind, do nothing, or do it again. I guess we could do a different framing, so that would be a fourth. And I was told very clearly in the previous conversation around this that the sort of practicality of finding the installers, the cost of the installation, all of that should not be what we are debating, and that our remit is solely within the what do we recommend from a health standpoint, and that it's very hard for me to divorce those issues because making a recommendation that isn't practically doable feels really silly to me. On the other hand, I will just reiterate what we were told last time when we had this conversation. So that's my logistics for this all.
I wanted to add, Risha, that which is why the wording of the motion was carefully chosen. The words were chosen carefully, which was we're not advocating for a certain surface that might have a dollar amount, et cetera, et cetera. That was not within the purview of the Board of Health, but simply that there are concerns about this surface, this type of surface, and the Board of Health does not support the use of that type of surface.
I guess my last thing would be, I was just looking up, are these things majority or unanimous? And because it's a letter of recommendation, there are no rules around that. But I would suggest that because it is a letter of recommendation, we should be unanimous in whatever we feel about. And so just putting that out there as it doesn't have to be, but my gut would say, because this is not something that has to be done from us, that I would want everyone to feel good about whatever we sign. Betsy, is that a hand?
Yeah, can you hear me? I was wondering, what's the surface that's used in the other toddler playgrounds in the community, like Kendrick Park and I think Groff Park also has a soft surface. Is the crumb rubber the thing that has been used throughout town, or is there something else that has been used elsewhere? Does
My
anyone?
understanding is those are the poured in rubber surfaces.
Yeah, I know Crocker Farm with their preschool, that's what they have.
Premila, you're on mute I don't know if you're trying to talk to us or not.
Sorry about that. But those are older playgrounds. And new information becomes available as years pass. And so it's something new information to be taken into account.
I agree. No, whoops.
Not disagreeing, just wondering whether there was any experience locally with some of the alternatives.
Yeah, I just think the use of the they call it PIP is just it is highly successful, I guess. And again, I was never aware of the type of issues that were discussed last year with this product. Again, there is a Turi report But I think, again, if I were to look and dissect, the road out in front of my house, the amount of asphalt in that, the materials in my house, there are a lot of materials, but the question is, how does that get into the human body? And they don't. And this playground surface, if you use the crumb, the poured in place stuff is it's closer to a latex paint type situation. And it's got a cure, right? And that's when it, volatilizes. But thereafter, it really isn't prone to chipping, and the kids aren't gonna get it in their fingernails and that. It's when it comes to that, then you just replace it. And that's like in a 5 to 10 year time frame is if that. Many times these products go way beyond their warranty period. But I'm just a little nervous about trying to do something, that isn't, just tried and true, given where we came from, whatever happened with Wildwood and Fort River and the design of those things. It's like, I just like a good, solid, product that has been tested and is, pass the straight face test, throughout the state and country for that matter.
Again, I guess I would say that, the fact that it's been used all this time doesn't mean that this would be the most appropriate for a new elementary school based on all the information that's available now. I would point out that the studies cannot and do not conclude that there is no risk. And putting it on asphalt is very different from using it as a playground surface. You know how kids are, and good luck with getting them to wash their hands and so on and so forth. And, again, I think that it's important to just not pivot based on one community's experience. There are 2 other options out there that we know about. And I think it's worth looking into further. And I will say I do have a problem about a letter having to be unanimous. As long as it's a majority, I think that seems to be more reasonable.
Okay. Noted. So I was looking up when the last playgrounds were. It looks like the Crocker Farm preschool playground was redone in 2017, and the Groff Park playground was opened in 2020. Just to give a sense, there is the park in the downtown Amherst, and that was even more recent, and now I can't recall what its surface looks like. Betsy, you're on mute if you're talking.
It is that soft, bouncy stuff.
Okay. Is that Kendrick Park? Is that what that one's called?
Kendrick Park.
Okay.
I took my grandkids there.
So June 2021 is what it says. It says it was scheduled to be opened. I do recall it was delayed quite a bit. But that was somewhere around there.
So I'm just reminding people of the language in the surface motion, which is that, the board invoked the precautionary principle of public health that states that a product action policy that has a suspected risk of causing harm, should be avoided. If you don't, until you have like absolutely clear scientific proof of risk. And I do think that some of the findings and summaries that were listed in the FDA reports that you sent, Jack, those we did look, I don't know if we looked at those specifically as a group, but those were sort of taken into account. And I believe the Turi people had some concerns with some of the conclusions that were drawn. Not all studies are good studies. You have to kind of analyze them and see whether the conclusions that are being drawn are based on representative data and all sorts of things. So I do recall that some of the Turi researchers had some concerns about some of those conclusions. Can't be conversant on the details. But I think that what was driving this discussion in the town was that there were some concerns about this maybe being not the best, maybe having, we know that there are carcinogens, all those things that you said, Jack. We know that there are these not great things. The question is the root, how dangerous is the root? Do they really get into the body? We kind of don't know. So the precautionary principle is let's avoid it, especially if there's corkine. Like the idea that there was something that was non-toxic was definitely a factor in people sort of thinking about how to weigh in on this. So I think that it's something it's a work in progress at this point. There's going to be more conversations. I do feel like it's worthwhile to investigate more about corkine. I mean, just one community's experience doesn't seem like the reason to throw in the towel to me. But it's not, I mean, I'm just telling you what seems to make sense to me and just for you all to consider. And it doesn't have to be, I don't think we want to make you as the board needs to make a decision about what to do right now. I think it's good that we've talked about it. There are opposing views clearly in this group. So maybe people revisit the research and then we see what the school committee comes up with, and it may have to come back to the board for a final decision about what you all want to do.
I'm not sure the board. My memory is that we weren't asked. I mean, we were asked by the community to weigh in, but we were not asked by the school committee to have an opinion. It was much more that because the community raised it with us, that we took a proactive approach to give our recommendation. So I'm not sure that they would come back and ask. I have no doubt that this will get covered in a newspaper. And so it will, that may engender conversation either on the school committee or letters to us and public comment. I mean, where I'm coming from personally is that I really appreciate Jack's point around the difference between contamination and exposure. I think that is a relevant concept to keep in mind. That second piece that he read into the record about not putting it in your mouth and washing your hands, as someone who's had an elementary school daughter who just waved at me less than 6 months ago. She just went into middle school. There was stuff put in mouths. There was not washing of things. And so that language really, really concerned me, even though I know they are being precautious, right? That was we don't think this is how it gets in, but we still recommend this. Those recommendations feel like a not fit for elementary school playground to me personally. But I also appreciate that this is not something I feel confident in my knowledge of or expertise on. I'm wondering if I could get a sense check from each of us of the 4 options in front of us. Withdraw letter, do nothing, reiterate letter, or change letter. Where are people leaning at this point?
I would say I'm leaning, it must be obvious, I'm leaning towards a reiteration letter until we have more information about what the issues are with the other potential surfaces. Again, I'm going from the mindset of do no harm. And, the fact that those precautions were listed tells me they don't know for sure. And I accept that there are many things we cannot know for sure, but if there is concerning evidence and an agency like Turi looked at this carefully, including the 2 reports that have been cited at this meeting, you know, to me, given the remit of Turi, that's significant information to consider.
Yeah, I guess my opinion is I would want to edit it at, at the least. And with knowing there's got to be, the crumble tire is, or the tire crumb is something that's beneath a different type of surface, which to me is benign. So, I mean, there would be some wordsmithing for me.
And so would the wordsmithing be in the sentence that is that the committee avoid or limit use that contain heavy metals, hydrocarbons, microplastics, or other components known to be harmful? Or does not support the use of crumb rubber derived from recycled tires in the construction, or both?
Yeah, well, I think the levels in and of themselves are pretty low, I think. So I'd have to kind of I'd have to look and see what is involved. But for me, like, recycling is a good thing, right? I mean, if we're using something that would be going into, a landfill, I mean, there's to me that has actually some value.
Well, it does, but not all recycling is valuable. As a general principle, my feeling is yes, absolutely, that it is. And the thing about the surface, with the crumb rubber being underneath, the surface will degrade. I mean, that's what the studies show, and can free up the rubber. And so that is a cause for concern.
And that's where I spoke with this engineer who designs dozens of these things, and they're meant, once they start having some sort of degradation, the top comes off and you just reapply it. So there's a warranty. So it's just like a road. You repave a road after so many years, or fix the potholes,
or
things
you
like that.
should.
Yeah, you should.
Or you should. Yes.
Oh, that was a zinger there. That's it.
Well, and actually,
Well
that's
earned too,
a
right?
very good point. So is resurfacing then, if it becomes necessary, is that going to be, an issue of, is there money in the budget for it? And so on. And the other materials that were discussed, just, they have accessibility and safety. So I just think it's too soon to throw out any.
Yeah. And again, this other product, this Corkine, I don't know that it has enough examples out there to verify that it will hold up, because it's not common. So
Not common in the US.
not common in the US. But I mean, I don't know that we drilled down and looked at that particular product in any.
Well, again, we weren't recommending that product.
Yeah.
We were recommending not using port-in-place rubber. So that is an important distinction, I think.
Betsy?
So I had a couple of comments. I wanted to say that this whole change from having, the old kinds of surfaces to these soft ones, I think have really made a difference in playground safety. It's a wonderful thing. I'm delighted to see it. And I think that the idea that young children and preschoolers and young children often go play at the elementary playgrounds as well as the young elementary school students. And I think if you actually felt that, eating or sliding on these materials was not safe, just saying wash your hands, change your clothes, shower afterwards, that wouldn't be sufficient. I've also seen my grandchildren live in San Francisco, which has a lot of these soft materials in the playgrounds. And actually, I've seen them in fair amounts of decay and neglect. You know, they really do start crumbling at a time. And I think that analogy to the Amherst roads that are having potholes that aren't being replaced. I mean, I think, you know, if they're safe only if maintained and you resurface periodically, to me that would, you know, that's a problem because, you know, finding the money to do that, you know, needs to be factored in. So I don't know, I haven't taken a deep dive into this, I haven't looked carefully at the literature, I haven't looked at all at the literature. Um, but I think to say that you don't want to use things that have safety concerns with young children seems seems like the kind of thing that a Board of Health can say. If somebody has, you know, makes the case that these in fact are not materials that need special precautions when used by young children, you know, that would be convincing. I think someone saying it's not a significant exposure, but you should do the following precautions, that's sort of less convincing to me.
So am I understanding that you would support reiterating the letter that was previously submitted? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I think you'd say that if you know, in the absence of safety information, that exposure to those things, you know, is to be avoided. Exposure to toxins in, if somebody comes up with evidence that in fact there isn't an exposure in the recycled tire material, great. But I didn't find that a convincing statement that it's not an exposure.
So I reread the letter and I do realize that the way that it was shared said who motioned to approve the letter and then the vote. And so there would be an option that we could send something with a dissent, with a note of dissent. Not that we had no dissenters last time, and so there was no like,
Yeah.
we're not a Supreme Court justice, which has a dissenting argument. But we could, you know, we could certainly say this was the majority passed this and the dissenter wanted to add this. And that would be one way to non-unanimously make a decision. It does not feel like we are going to reach a consensus unless, Jack, you look at the wording and make a suggestion on, you know, I would feel comfortable supporting this if this change in
Yeah.
wording, and then we would review that. But we seem fairly far apart, I think, from getting a unanimous decision. And I think that that's, you know, okay also that we have differing opinions. Betsy, it sounds like you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like you don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the better. It would be a shame to go to say no surfaces are available that have both durability and zero risk. Other than, you know, so I do understand Jack's concern that you don't want to get to a place where you have taken out anything feasible. But I think expressing a strong concern that these things should be avoided maybe is a place that Jack might or might not feel comfortable.
Avoided if there's alternatives, you know, so, I mean, there's various ways of,
Yeah.
my 2 cents is that I do recall, I did not reread all the research, but I do recall from the last time that there was specific concerns on what was emitted from the recycled tires, and that's why that language got in there, that we were concerned, because that seemed to actually be the most concerning emitter of the toxins, is when it came from previously used tires that had been on the roads and picked up stuff, I guess, not the scientist here. So that's why the recycled was in there. And then, I mean, I think this is a side note, but I actually remember reading the research and feeling like I was ready to have cement under playgrounds again, and a broken leg would be better than some of the stuff that could happen from the toxins. So Betsy, I went
I have a 2-year-old grandchild now with a broken leg.
Uh-oh.
From a soft surface, we hope.
I just remember being like, man, we might be solving the wrong problems here and creating bigger ones than what I had as a kid. What any of us had as kids. So maybe the way forward is, Jack, if you want to take a look, and if there is a tweak of words that you feel comfortable with, let us know what that would be and we can review it. If it's a major, and if not, I think then what I hear the others saying is that we would put a reiterated letter with maybe some additional, I don't know if both of you added some, until we know more on other surfaces, or on the absence of more information on exposure, both of you added little bits here and there. But that we would do something similar to what we did before, noting a dissent, noting that it was not unanimous, and if Jack wanted to add a paragraph on why he voted against it,
Minority opinion.
yes, as in our very legal capacity here, having not been asked to write anything to the school committee, other than a community member, and that's what's prompting this.
Well, I do think that there's some significance to the Board of Health being asked to weigh in, as we were last year, about
From the
something
community.
that clearly affects, the safety of children in school. So, and I understand completely that, we're not the deciders, but it seems reasonable to me to ask us to weigh in on it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. I didn't mean to imply that the school committee had asked the Board of Health to weigh in. That's not what happened. And so this is not connected to the school committee. I just know that they're meeting again soon to make a decision. And it is the community that asked the Board of Health to weigh in, so.
And just FYI, the next Amherst School Committee meeting is September 9th. So it seems unlikely that we will have a signed, sealed, and delivered letter by then, just because I'm not sure we're even allowed to discuss it outside of a public meeting. And so I have no doubt that this will hit the papers, and the school committee will be aware of our positions as a whole. And I think that we still aim for a letter, but it probably won't hit before they have their next meeting.
To be clear, I am comfortable reiterating the old position, and that's not complicated for me.
Okay.
I just feel like I could squish a little bit to accommodate where Jack's coming from.
Is there a desire to try to work that out now, so that we have a letter before the 9th meeting?
Well, we have a meeting before the next school committee meeting, no?
September 9th is their next meeting.
And when are we meeting?
Well, it's September 4th today.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why I thought we were still in August. I'm so very sorry. I guess I don't want summer to end.
All there. We're all with you.
Yeah, it might be easier just for you guys to accept the memo as is, and I could just do a minority opinion and send that, in the next day or two. I don't know.
Are you comfortable with that, Jack?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, but right now, I don't know that I'm gonna wordsmith it to where I feel I'm adding value.
Well, if I understood you correctly, Jack, the way you wanted to wordsmith it was to say something like, it's okay if crumb rubber is underneath a sealed surface. So essentially poured in place feels okay to you. But I think the statement says poured in place is
That's
not
right.
okay. So my sense
is.
is that the other 3 board members wouldn't sign on to that particular amendment.
Mhm.
Am I correct about that?
Mhm.
So I'm not sure that it's worth trying to do that. If the
Okay.
majority doesn't feel okay with that.
So then the way forward is to have a reiteration of the existing letter with a vote taken, which will clearly indicate that someone was not for it. And if Jack would like to put in a sentence about his dissent and the reasons voting against it, we would be okay with that. Okay. And then the question is how, I may suggest that that we take that vote now and that Jack can add in his dissent either as an attach, like if we sent it in tomorrow, he could send it in the next day as a dissenter, or he could have a day to add his dissent before we send it in. Unfortunately, we only have 5 days between now and their meeting. Jack, what would you prefer?
Yeah, I guess I would have to modify that last sentence and say unless it were sealed beneath a, benign, superficial, rubber layer or other layer. But I don't know. I mean, it's complicated because I know there's VOCs in the surface coating. But again, I just kind of looked at this with, today basically, and I don't want to misspeak about what's
So my sense is that we don't have to approve your dissent
right.
and we don't have to wordsmith your dissent. Your dissent is your dissent, and
Yeah.
we will just accept that as part of the letter. So to me, you have, I guess, 3 options. One is to just have the no vote without a written dissent, to have that you commit to writing something in the next 2 days so we can send it in before the school committee meeting,
Okay.
or we send it separately and you can add on if you would like a dissent note. Would you like to try to get that included in the next few days?
Yeah, I think I can do that.
Okay, so would someone like to motion to resend our original letter to the school committee before their next meeting? Okay, so Premila motions. Is there a second? Betsy seconds. All those in favor? 3
Oh,
in
the
favor,
motion.
0, 1 against. Am I right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with the process, but I don't agree with the memo. Yeah. Okay.
Right, so it's 3-1, and we will give you till today's Thursday. The 9th is a Tuesday. So if you could have your dissent in by Sunday night to Maheen and Kiko. I am traveling, so I will not be able to send this myself, but hopefully Kiko or Maheen can send it in on behalf of the board.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone happy with that process?
Yes.
Okay. Great. I have closed the agenda. Let me pull it back up. Planning retreat. I think let's just talk about the process. So we had many meetings ago now talked about our personal priorities and interests on some proactive topics. I will just remind you what came up at that time. There was fluoridation of water. I always think I say that wrong. Wastewater issues, mental health issues, defibrillators, wider access to defibrillators, Puffer's Pond, which included sewers and I think it's fats, oils, and greases, health equity, immunization requirements, ticks and mosquitoes, overdose, compost, which is we have talked about a bit, primary care shortage, walking and biking, encouraging walking and biking, were the ones that this group came up with as sort of things there was energy around. I had gone through and looked at, various other Amherst boards and committees that might be looking at this. I don't think I have a correct or complete list because I don't know what all these committees do. One option is to have people on our team offer to be liaisons to those other committees if health topics come up, or if there's some joint interest in taking some of these topics forward in a more proactive way. One of the issues with all of those topics is what can the Board of Health actually do as a policy and regulation group versus an implementing advocacy group. We can send letters of support to things just like we have, but many of these don't have clear regulatory implications. So what seems to me, it seems to me we will never have enough time in any of these meetings to think through this well and completely. And I don't want to lose the energy around being more proactive, because we can always be reactive and that will leave stuff untouched that we care about. So one option is to try to do a bit of a plan, a proactive plan of what we want to cover and how. I looked at the Affordable Housing Trust because I used to be on it, and I knew that right before I left, they were starting to talk about a strategic plan. And so I looked to see what they did. And the way they did it was to have a subcommittee like we do on these other topics, take a start at it, and then have one separate public hearing that was just committed to this topic, where they worked through. Now they have money as an affordable housing trust. That is their role, is to that is solely their role, is to dispense money. And so they also had a consultant who is very well versed in affordable housing and what these kinds of trusts could do, and helped them put that together. I think their strategy is at a very different place than ours because of the difference between a trust and a board. But I thought that their process might be probably the best way forward given open meeting regulations. So to have sort of two people dig in a little, maybe we could ask for support from some, the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards or some such that has a knowledge of what's possible and what we can really do, and what others have done. And then have one additional non-regularly scheduled meeting to dig into it. I will warn you, theirs was 4 hours, that additional non-scheduled or off-scheduled meeting. So you may have learned about me that I really like to keep to agendas and really like to keep to time. And so I can commit to you that it will be whatever we agree it will be. It won't be 5 hours if we say it's 2. But I'm just telling you what it took them to get through it. So are people interested in a process to get to a proactive plan, or is that just more than we want to take on at this point?
For me, I mean, it'd be a lot of education because a lot of those are topics that, are new to me. So it'd be a little bit of training, I guess, in some respects, and learning. And
Is that good or bad?
It was obviously good. So I think it'd be not, I mean, 4 hours.
Too much.
Well, I mean, if it's 8 to noon, that doesn't sound too bad, but with a nice break.
Yeah, so it might be a very different time for most of us.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer, we could do it at somebody's home, different location, have some food, it can be a little bit more relaxed setting, something like that.
It does have to be open to the public.
Yeah, we could try to do a hybrid meeting, something like that. I don't know, so that people can listen in to what we're talking about.
I mean, it doesn't have to be recorded. It can be in person, but it has to be open to the public. So maybe not at one of our houses.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Anyway, but the thing about food still pertains, I think is really important that you create a relaxed atmosphere that can still happen even if the public is there.
Yeah. Unless someone wants to open their house to the public, which you are welcome to do. Any other thoughts on it?
What are your thoughts? Having gone through this.
Well, I mean, I haven't gone through it. I didn't do it with the board of the trust. I left the trust as they were starting to talk about it. I did read where they landed, and it was really inspiring. And I think I remember floundering as a board and not really knowing how to focus our energy on the trust. And so I think it was a huge, from what I just can read, a huge step forward. Are we exactly the same? Not quite, because we've got enough reactive things that come before us to keep us busy. But it does mean that we don't address any of these other things. And it does seem sad to me that we each bring a passion that isn't necessarily getting utilized.
So that sounds like 2 pluses.
Betsy and Premila?
Sorry, go ahead, Betsy.
No, you first, Primala.
I was just gonna say that I do think that being proactive is valuable, and like the issue of kratom, for instance, that's being proactive, and I think that's great. I've often felt like it would be good to have a better way to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on public health wise. And what Risha said about the housing committee that she was on, that being inspiring, that's inspiring in and of itself. So that's a yes, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Well, I do feel like it's having a vision of what people feel is important is a good thing. 4 hours sounds like a lot. I'm finding that but if everyone else is in, I'm in.
I agree with your concern about the time. I think maybe
Yeah.
if we can shrink that even a little.
I want to offer that I think we can shrink that. I think Teresha's point, when we have these meetings, there's so many other things to talk about. If we even had an hour and a half to dedicate to a discussion, just this, that would be great. So maybe it's 2 hours with some snacks and that's what you do, something like that. Or 2.5. It doesn't have to be 4 hours, I don't think.
But we do want to do enough so that it's a substantial conversation, because I think doing it too briefly is
I agree. I just don't
It's
think it's
impossible.
it's not a strategic planning retreat that needs to take hours and hours where you're developing a strategic plan. And it's more of a in-depth conversation that you can spend a good amount of time on, but not tire people out, hopefully.
And I think the success in us being able to do this in a 2-hour block, which I think seems more reasonable, is about the preparation and how much we understand about what our parameters are. Like, I think that for me then would be, I would really want to talk to the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards and get guidance on what is possible, what is within our remit, how to keep that in mind, and really have a clear way to get to an end and a vision of what an end looks like, and then you can sort of chop it out in 2 hours. But if we go in without that, then it starts to take 4 to 5 hours because we don't quite know where we're going. So I think that's possible. It will just take more time in preparation. And I'm happy. I mean, I volunteer to lead this, but I do think it would be great to have someone else. And maybe that's Kiko, or maybe I know each of you have an assignment already outside of the board, meaning Jack's working on the well and how we rethink those regulations, and Betsy and Emily are both working on the kratom issue. So I understand if someone doesn't want to take on an extra at this point, but I do think I would like to work with someone on it.
I think, sorry if you don't have the time and you can say so, Kiko, but I just think your perspective would be valuable because you sort of have a meta view of things. And so, you know, I think it would be great if you could fulfill that role that Risha is suggesting. The other thing I wondered is if we wanted to invite someone from the Association of Health Boards.
Yeah. I think we would want them at least in our planning, if not during the actual event. As you were talking, Pramila, I also thought maybe it's an opportunity to reach out to some other boards that we think are well functioning, or that the housing boards, the health boards group thinks are well functioning, that we should talk to and see, you know, if they want to engage in that conversation as well. Kiko, I will just say, I know you are doing 2 jobs right now, and this is not urgent, and therefore we could wait until you have 1 job and have settled back into just 1 job.
You only have 1 job now, right?
Effective Monday, September 8th, I will have only 1 job. So
Okay.
there's a light at the end.
Not quite yet.
So yeah, next Monday, I'll just be back to being public health director. And I definitely want to support this process in whatever way makes sense to you all. So I'm happy to play that role.
Okay.
And I will have more time, although when I get to the director's update, I will be able to share with you some of the complicating things that are happening in the world of public health. If you didn't pay attention to the news, it's quite striking what's going on. So yes.
Oh my goodness, is there ever?
Betsy?
So I personally am open to 3 hours. I think the difference between 3 and 4 is significant. 3 hours is fine. And I'm happy to be pulled in any way that's helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
All right, well, let's try it. I am not feeling urgency around this, and so it might be one of those things that we, you know, Kiko and I look at our schedules and see when there feels like there might be some downtime to start this conversation. Great. So what is next? Those were all of our topics. We are to the director's update.
Yes, so, okay. Fall vaccine clinic, it's a whole new world this year from last year. So normally what we try to do in partnership with Northampton Department of Health and Human Services, because they've had this public health excellence grant, they've had capacity to do regional vaccine clinics. Normally we schedule 2 or 3, 4 clinics with them. We do a couple of them at the banks, COVID and flu for whoever wants to come. Because of the dismantling of ACIP, the Committee on Immunization Practice, the lack of clear guidance about what is happening with COVID, you know, eligibility for COVID vaccines for anybody who's not 65 plus or has underlying health conditions, we're not planning a fall vaccine clinic that offers COVID-19 vaccine to anybody under the age of 65. So, and we also have fewer resources. Northampton has fewer resources, so we're just doing one clinic at the Bangs, which will be October 21st. We've been promoting it already, and Maheen has been taking anywhere between 5 and 7 calls a day from people who want to sign up. So I think we're going to be full fairly soon because it's just a 3-hour clinic. And it's just, we're marketing it as being for seniors. So we're saying it's, COVID vaccine, and we don't even know for certain. The language is, we expect to have COVID vaccine, but only for people 65 plus. Flu vaccine will be open to younger people, but we're really kind of thinking of younger people as seniors who are not quite 65. So people between the ages of 50 and 65, because it's really a senior center clinic. We're just trying to be as clear as possible in our messaging, reaching those people who are most at risk. And we're, there's a lot of uncertainty. There are fewer resources. The Mass Department of Public Health is not sending out mobile vaccine vans the way they have done in past years. So that's no longer a resource. So it's really tricky. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 weeks before the vaccine clinic happens. Maybe some things will change. The problem is if there's no recommendation for people to get COVID vaccines, then insurance won't cover them and we can't do them. We do bill insurance when we see people for these vaccine clinics. If people are uninsured, we manage that, but most people have insurance and the process is set up to bill insurance for these vaccines. I'm also hearing that CVS and Walgreens in our community do not have vaccines available generally, at least not for people, definitely not for people under 65 or who don't have chronic conditions. It's just not available to people because of what's happening with the lack of guidance.
Can I ask when that information is from? Because I hear it's changing quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it is changing quickly. Maybe I don't have the most current information. If something new has happened that I haven't been made aware of, it's been a busy day. So I know RFK was being grilled. Sorry, my dog is barking. It was a big session today, and I don't know if anything's come of that or what's going on. Tell me what you've heard, Risha, that's different from what I said.
So I'm going to spread a lot of rumors here, and nothing should be taken as something I've verified, but I have, there's lots of conversations going on in the community, of course, about how to get COVID vaccines for either children or non-senior adults. And I do understand that CVS and Walgreens have made the order based on Healy's, she put out something for Massachusetts at the end of last week, and so that they are expecting doses to come in this week. And for the time being, that you do have to check that you have a risk factor.
Yeah, I think that is the ticket, that you have to check that you have a risk factor. So given that we are trying to organize a clinic in the least complicated way possible, we're just trying not to engage in that whole area.
I don't think it affects your
that's-
clinic. I'm just
yeah.
saying from what's available in the rest of the
Because I think that is the current guidance, that if you have a risk factor, you can get a vaccine. And the risk factors are also very vague. Like I had heard that physical inactivity counts as a risk factor.
Yeah, I mean, I asked my PCP today and they did not have them at the PCP for.
Yeah. So I think it really is constantly changing on a daily basis. I did see something about the Healy administration. I wasn't that conversant on it. We have a call with the state next Tuesday. I'm hoping they'll give us the latest and let us know what Massachusetts is doing, because it really is sort of a state by state kind of thing a little bit. It's definitely just upsetting. The other thing is that we've always been able to have COVID tests. We had, we don't have a big budget, so there were sources for free COVID tests, and we were availing ourselves of them and making really smart and strategic use of those resources. And those resources have also dried up. So we have maybe 50 COVID tests left at the health department, and there's a lot of demand for them right now because we are experiencing a slight spike, kind of a late summer wave in COVID. Nothing devastating, but more infections. So it's just tricky. It's a tricky time for public health.
Betsy's been trying to say something.
So I don't know whether everyone knows this, but in Massachusetts, the state supplies the vaccine to all private practices, in all private pediatric practices under the Vaccine for Children Act. And the requirement is that anything recommended by ACIP, so I guess one of the questions I have is, you know, is the state going to continue supplying vaccines for free to pediatric offices? This has been something, you know, you hear about how private practices in other communities don't vaccinate children, but, you know, in Massachusetts, every child can get a vaccine. But that's because it also, the pediatricians aren't paying for it out of their pocket. They get it from the state for free. And I'm just wondering, has there been a disruption to that? Are pediatricians still going to be supplied with vaccines?
As far as I know, we are vaccines for children recipient, and nobody has told us that we're not continuing to get those vaccines here in the public health department. So again, this is something I hope to have an update on Tuesday from the state.
Yeah.
I don't have any news right now.
Well, vaccines for children provides the vaccines at no cost to people without insurance and who have certain risk factors. But there's a universal purchase for pediatricians for all vaccines, and that you know, if that system were to fall apart because of the federal non-endorsement of the existing vaccine schedules, this would be just incredibly disruptive.
It will be. I mean, I know that Massachusetts joined with other states, 7 other states, I think. I don't have all the details on this, but to come together and form sort of an alternative advisory body based on science about some of these things in the absence of strong guidance from the former AKIP or ASIP, whatever it's called. So it might be that regulations are going to change. And if there's some other body because ASIP isn't, some other body that's making regulations that would have an influence on whether vaccines for children provides.
Yeah. And
That
whether
may be in the
Massachusetts
future.
will continue to bulk buy and
Yeah,
distribute the vaccine.
it's just, I think it's just so uncertain is the only word I can use right now. And upsetting is another word I'll use. So, yeah.
So I do have a report of someone who got a COVID vaccine yesterday at the Amherst CVS as a person under 65 with a risk factor. So they do have them in stock per someone.
That's good to know. That's really helpful news. Thank you for telling us that. Anyway, so the clinic on the 21st, and then we will do a clinic at Clark House, which we do every year also to reach folks there. And we're also able to still do homebound vaccines, I understand. So we'll be doing really just prioritizing those people who can't get out, who are at highest risk. So that's, and you know, keep you posted on anything that I hear. Anything else? Any other questions or input about that? Okay. And then for the opioid settlement funds, so Haley Barrows was the intern who worked with us over the summer. She put out this survey, which we've gotten quite a few responses to. We tried to do a couple community forums, but it was in August. We didn't get attendance. So we'll try to do some more of those in September to hear more from younger people in the community or other folks in the community, just ideas for what we could be doing with our opioid settlement funds. So we're still working on that needs assessment process, but she's put together the sketch of a program plan. So it's very helpful to have had her work this summer. It's been great. And then I think the only 2 other things I wanted to mention were that it's been a little bit of a quiet summer with respect to mosquito-borne illness, but there was just this week a West Nile virus positive pool of mosquitoes in Amherst. You know, there haven't been that many mosquitoes that are mammal biting mosquitoes being found in our surveillance efforts. So that's really good. The West Nile virus is being found in a species of mosquitoes that bites birds. So there's this whole amplification thing that happens. Not that many mosquitoes that are biting mammals, which are the ones that get to us. So the risk for West Nile virus is still low, and the season is going to be coming to a close. The evenings have been getting cooler, but we still really urge people to be careful and to, you know, wear repellent because it is out there, especially in the dawn and dusk hours. There have only been 2 human cases of West Nile virus in the Commonwealth this summer and no EEE cases. Last year we had a couple EEE cases, so it's been dry. That probably has something to do with it this last month. And then the final thing I wanted to say is that As you know, the town of Amherst only has 14 tobacco sales permits. We're capped at that. And if someone sells a business, they can transfer that. If it's they're selling that business, a liquor store that has a tobacco permit, they can sell that whole ensemble to a new purchaser. And that is in fact happening with Russell's Liquors on Main Street. They're selling to someone. So that's allowable, so that permit will pass from one person to the one business to another, but it will come before the board. So just a heads up that that's something that's in process. I think that's all. I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting, but I think that's okay for now.
Pico, does it make, I'm going back to the vaccines, of course. Does it make sense? Is there anything that the town can do to help people navigate this in the time of uncertainty? Is there a way that we can keep sort of the latest information out there, or I recognize that in the groups I'm in, you know, whether it's parents groups or Amherst groups, it's just a huge question, and people are sort of all over the place, wondering, you know, how do I get my infant? How do I get myself? How do I get my whatever?
Yeah. So we've been working on this vaccine information campaign, and we do have a website. It's almost finished. So that's like a separate website from the public health department, and it's specifically about vaccines. The purpose of it was to really provide a safe place for people to come and get up-to-date science-based information, connect with a public health nurse in their community. It's not just Amherst, it's a regional effort who could answer questions and direct people to resources. So it's still going to serve that purpose, but I think it also has to serve the purpose of telling people exactly what is going on with all of these questions and how to access vaccines. So we need to be putting this, I think we need to build a page on this site that is like breaking news or what's the latest in vaccine access, and people can go there to find this out. We're going to be promoting it. We want to promote it through the press, through the farmers market, through lots of different channels. It's just not quite ready yet, but now that all of this is happening, I'm pushing to get it done so that we can have that be a place. It's called Valley Vax Chat is the name of the website, valleyvaxchat.org. It is actually live right now, but it's not ready. Here I am saying this on a recorded meeting, but it's okay if people look at it. It does need more work, but it's a landing page right now for this. And of course, our health department webpage will also have information and will link people to this page as well. And we'll do a lot on social media. We're going to try to use our communications manager to drive people to this place, which can be the place for up-to-date info. It needs some work, but we'll get there in the next couple weeks.
Okay. Yeah, I think that we can expect a
This is the
lot.
quickest way to clear out stuck poop. I have to poop, but it feels stuck.
Whoops.
Sorry, I was just checking out the Valley Vax chat.
That was classic.
I don't know why that is on the Valley. What you hear when you
I don't know. Is that on your? That's like one of those ads that pops up on your phone.
I was on my computer. I just went to the Valley Vax.
Oh, okay, that's weird. I'll have to look at that. And people say Board of Health meetings are boring. Okay. So go on.
I think that there's a lot of confusion about what is available,
Yeah.
what is not available, where it's available, for who it's available, for people who did I have heard people say last year I did the town, you know, clinic or that you offered for my infant or whatever. And so just trying to understand what, you know, helping people to navigate I suspect, you know, particularly like the next 2 months of turmoil.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, not great, but there it is.
Yeah.
Anything else from you, Kiko?
I don't think so.
Okay. Did we have any topics not anticipated?
Not that I know of. Nope. Nothing for me.
Okay. We still have 3 attendees. Would anyone like to comment? Raise your hand your virtual hand if you would. I'm not seeing anybody. So I'm going to take that as a no. And in that case, can I have someone move to adjourn the meeting? Betsy moves to adjourn. Is there a second? Premila? All those in favor of adjourning? And there's everyone, and thank you guys. Lots of discussion again. These are not dull meetings, at least from my side.
Agreed. Okay, thanks, everybody.
You.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Night.